So very often people are thinking about solving an issue with a tool. So I'll buy this software, I'll implement this stuff. Where the issue is just on the process, right? You need to fix the process first, and then you can put whatever tool you want. But if you put a tool on a shaky process, you are not doing anything, and you won't fix your issue. So I think a good thing about coming from the business is you're focused on the process much more than on the technology, right?
That golden nugget is brilliant. You never use a hammer on a screw, and then you never use a screwdriver on a nail. Trying to solve. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Leaders in Tech podcast. Today we have with us Nick with an amazing structure and from a company that I respect a lot. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Nick, for the audience, on purpose I didn't say your last name because I don't know how to pronunciate it. So for the audience, can you give me your full name? Where do you live and what do you do for a living?
So my name is Nicholas Hien. I live in Montreal, and I'm a CIO at Dollarama and Executive Vice President at Dollarama.
Wonderful. So Dollarama and Dollar City are the same company then, or?
Yeah, it's Dollarama is a subsidiary of Dollarama, so it's actually the same company.
That's wonderful. So is that for the whole Canadian territory, or what territory?
Yeah, Dollarama is a Canadian company, so we are coast to coast. We have 1,600 stores across Canada, and Dollarama is our Latin American subsidiary. We are currently in 4 countries: El Salvador, Guatemala, Colombia, and Peru. And we are weeks away from entering the Mexican market. So
this podcast is brought to you by ISU Corp. Are you having trouble with your software projects? Is there a project that's taking too long or a technology you can't handle? We can help. We are ISU Corp, experts in custom software since 2005. With almost 20 years of experience, we can solve any technical problem from new businesses to satellite software. We've done it all. Let us turn your ideas into reality. Learn more about how we can help by visiting us at www.isucorp.ca. Your solution starts here.
It's going to be our 5th country.
You're going to do amazing in Mexico. I mean, if you're doing great in the other countries like Guatemala, congratulations. We were just talking about this, right? I have a friend of mine in Guatemala that does real estate development for retail plazas. And he says, whenever there is a Dollar City coming in, he goes in and builds because he knows the traffic is going to get there for the other retailers, right?
Yeah, we are becoming a destination for in Guatemala. It has been an amazing market for us so far.
And Canada has been great too. A fun fact, right? So I didn't know Dollar City was a subsidiary of Dollarama, but I'm a man of faith and I'm a born again Christian, and they asked me to go preach in an orphanage last Saturday. So I was praying, so Lord, what do I actually do? And my wife had told me to bring some snacks. So I'm like, Lord, where do I buy these snacks? I want to make sure that they have fun. So I thought about Costco and I thought about other places. And then I thought, no, I think Dollar City will have them. And I actually just did one stop and I bought all these chocolates, potato chips, apple juices. It was amazing and they loved it. And that's thanks to the company you work for.
Thanks, David.
So Nick, tell me what's your day-to-day job like? What are you responsible for?
So my scope of work currently is as a CIO, I obviously oversee the IT function of Dollarama and Dollarcity. I'm also for Dollarama in charge of the international expansion. So we have currently this venture as a subsidiary for Dollarcity, but we also have recently done an acquisition in Australia that is closing. So I'm overseeing everything that is related to international. and I'm managing the project management office, which is all the project of the organization are managed by a department that I oversee as well. So that's basically my overall function. On the day-to-day side, I'm just juggling around those different hats, different function, and yeah, that's basically it.
That's wonderful. You look like you're 29 years old, so I don't know how you got to that position so young.
I'm not that young, actually, and my grandfather is Vietnamese, so it's probably the gene that. But that's all. Thank you very much.
That's wonderful. And Nick, for Dollarama structure, are you guys a franchise organization or is all corporate offices?
Not all corporate stores. 100% of our business is corporate, so we all manage it from Montreal. Apart from the Latin America operation that is managed from our head office in Panama.
In Panama,
yeah.
That's amazing, and your reach is great. Are you guys in the States?
No, not at all. It's a different market. So we decided not to go to the States. We started this journey with Dollarcity in 2013. Started as a partnership agreement initially with a call option. So we developed the business with the owner down there, and in 2019 we decided to exercise our option, and it actually became a subsidiary of Dollarama. So we had multiple occasions the last couple of years to go in the state, but we felt that was not the right market for us.
I didn't know that Dollarama and Dollarcity were a Canadian corporation. That makes me feel very proud. I'm Canadian myself, you know. So let's talk about your journey, Nick. Let's look back in time. Because getting to where you are is not easy. Like, there is a lot of competition. Having a good leader in technology, nowadays it's pivotal for the success of the company or the failure of the company. I heard a story that this CIO came into this multinational corporation. They spent $100 million implementing a CRM system just for him to get to leave the company 3 years later, and the new CIO had to rip it all apart and start from scratch again. $100 million of waste. Think about that. So, like, the decisions that you have to make, CTOs, CIOs, they could actually break or make a company. So what I want to do now is go back to your past and see where you got started. Where were you in your last year in high school, and what did you want to do with your life? So
actually, I actually never studied in IT. So the funny part is I have kind of an unconventional background where I study operation management, my bachelor at HEC Montreal. Then I did my master in logistics, and I started as a logistics consultant in CGI, which it's an IT company, but I was on the advisory and logistics services. Then after 2 years, I joined a company that was kind of a startup as a partner and as a project manager, which was called 4L2. That was a two-man company. We started basically almost from scratch. We had a lot of success. Our biggest customer was actually a company called Dollarama. So we started there. The company at Dollarama at the time just was going public. So we've been hired by the CEO at the time that hired us to implement a lot of projects, we improve the processes, and so on and so forth. Then we sold the company to KPMG a few years after that. And then I became a senior manager in charge of logistics and supply chain advisory at KPMG. And in the contract, we owed them 18 months. And after 18 months and today, I decided to leave KPMG and to join Dollarama, which we had a great project that I was super interested in. That was to launch Dollarama internationally, because at the time we were only in Canada. It was a 500 store operation. It was and we wanted to evaluate the opportunity internationally. So in 2013, we signed that deal with Dollarcity. So a couple of months after I joined in. And what happened is I was supposed to work full time on this Dollarcity project, and the IT vice president at the time left the company. So they asked me to. We were a super small management team, so they asked me to take over the IT role. So I never have done IT in my life. I had a couple of courses and stuff, but I ended up as an interim, being the IT vice president of a um, multi-million-dollar corporation. So I was trying to do my best during the day and trying to learn overnight and looking at my meeting that I had and trying to find out, okay, what I need to learn this night to be prepared for tomorrow's meeting. Now it's supposed to be a transition. Took more than a year when we find someone to take on the position, so I can move on to the international piece. And over time, I actually liked it, so I kept on the department, and I kept on the overseeing of the IT department, and now it's been more than 10 years, and I love it.
That's incredible. What a nice story. Now tell me, you had a stable job in your logistics. CGI is one of the largest consulting companies in Canada. I know it very well because I used to work for Bell Canada, and Bell Canada and CGI were like partner companies. So I know that, you know, the level of quality of that business is a beautiful business to work for. What was in your mind to resign to that nice job and get a startup that you had no idea whether it was going to work or not? Like it's like 9 or 8 out of 10 startups fail, right?
Yeah, I think it's the entrepreneur call that you feel that at some point that if I don't do that now, or that I'm super young, when I'm gonna do that. So I wanted to try it. I felt that it was a good opportunity. I felt that the market was there, and I wanted to learn. And CGI was great company to start. But at some point, you want to grow and you want to take responsibility. And those big company, and you work for Bell, so you know exactly what I mean. It's take time, right? And there are processes. If you don't have a certain age, it's more it's harder. And so I loved the experience, but I felt that, okay, let's try something else. And you know what? If it fails, then I'll try something else. So,
you know, having that mentality is what breaks the pattern of most, like I'm telling you, about 99% of the population. What you just said is critical. I'm gonna try it, and if I fail, I try something else, or I do something else. People are not willing to take that risk, Nick. I mean, especially when you have a nice, big, stable job. And so that people, they come with people like you or me with this certain amount of success. And they sometimes they say, oh, I wish I had what they have. But they didn't have the risks that we both were willing to take to be where we are. Not only the risks, but also the work ethic and the attitude to actually make it happen, right?
I agree. I think it's just the way you see the world, right? If you see it positively, you will think that, okay, if I fail, then I will have so much learning that I will have moved forward anyway, right? And honestly, at the time, I didn't feel it was such a risk, because you know the market. It's like the employment market right now, right? If you have a bit of experience, if you have a diploma, you end up finding a job, right? So at the end, it feels like it's a risk, but at the end of the day, it's not that much. You will take a month or two taking another job and trying something else. I think we tend to overthink those type of decision, where at the end the most important thing is taking the decision of doing something and then do whatever it takes to make it happen, instead of taking it through and never ending up moving or doing anything, right?
And then regretting, right? I think the worst thing in your life is when you go and you have lived your life and you look back and you regret not taking that leap of faith, right?
I agree.
And that's why, you know, my faith is so strong. Like, you know, like I said before, I'm a born again Christian, and I try to walk the way of the Lord and ask Him for strength and courage. You know, be strong and courageous, and then go forward and try it and go ahead and do it. People are terrified with fear, and fear is what, you know, makes people a prisoner of their own life, right?
Yeah.
What was your startup about, Nick?
That was a consulting company, and basically we were doing distribution center design, implementation of warehouse management systems, process changes, improvements, that type of stuff. So that was mainly consulting. Yeah.
So it was the two guys?
Yeah, it started at 2, ended up at around 10 people when we sold to KPMG. So yeah, that was the story of building a company and growing it.
Okay, so that's another paradigm break that I want to take to people. You see, this is getting amazing. I'm excited about this podcast. Most people believe that if they have a consulting or a service business, they can never sell, right? Because when you look at the markets, especially in IT, if people are looking for multiples of EBITDA based on recurring revenue services, right? Like, what's your recurring revenue? And then based on that, your EBITDA is multiples of that. And that's the only way to sell a company. And you just proved to me that is wrong.
Yeah, but
you can still do it.
That's for sure. That's if we would have been a SaaS company with recurring revenue, the multiple we would have sold would have been much higher. So I'm not telling you, and I'm not telling you that the services company are easy to sell or they are, because at the end of the day you ended up saying to a lower multiple than recurring revenue. But you do have there's a lot of company, those big shops, they are looking to grow some specific practices. You have an expertise that is niche or they are looking for. So now it's possible to sell, and there's an actual market for it.
That's amazing. So that proved to me that you were doing things right. And I mean, to get the eyeballs of somebody like KPMG, I mean, you must be doing something right. How did it happen? Did you land your first contract pretty fast, or you just got with your partner and said, okay, buddy, let's go, let's do this, let's quit our jobs, or did you already have some momentum before you quit your job?
Yeah, actually, the guy that was partnering with was a super good sales rep. He had multiple contacts. He was older than me, so he had those contacts in the industry. And basically, the deal when we started was he was selling the job, and I was delivering it with the project team. So that was a good formula, because he was selling a lot actually, and he was very good at it. So we ended up very complementary.
That's amazing. So when you got acquired by KPMG, of course you had to stay with them, so they make sure that whatever you were adding to their business will actually work out, right?
Yeah, because at the end, when you are the difference between companies that have recurring revenue and a SaaS model is what you're selling is actually the people, right? So what they are buying is the expertise, but the expertise stays with the people they are acquiring. So they wanted to make sure that the key people from this business were staying enough time to train others and to have this knowledge disseminated into the business.
For sure, because what you built was intellectual property. Correct. Right? All those processes that your team was able to do, you can actually replicate that. So that's the key value in a services-based company. That's why I tell people, if you do your service company well, if you have good EBITDA and you have patterns and processes documented, it's a sellable business.
Correct. It is.
And I tell you this because that's what I've been most of my life. Pretty much like you, I was hired by Bell, and then I went to other Fortune 500 companies until I finally decided to create my own service company based on software development, because I was a leader in technology back then. And a lot of people told me the company is unsellable. Going to a SaaS model, and I tried 3 different startups to do SaaS models there, and all of them failed because my calling was to have a service-based business. And guess what? We just turned 20 years this May.
Yeah.
Last month we turned 20 years in business. Out of those 20 years, all of the years were profitable except 2, with the exception of 1 or 2. I mean, we were giving or we were made profit. So that's a great story to tell.
Yeah. Because
value there, right?
And at the end, it's super sellable, because at the end, what they are buying is human capital, and they are buying your customer list, right? Because the list of people that trust you and that would give you mandate and what have you, what they are buying. So if you have good customer list, loyal, and if you have good human capital, you're actually a very sellable business.
Excellent. So how was your experience going to a big corporation to doing your own thing and then going back to another big corporation. That must have been a shocker, right?
Yeah, it's when you move to Laval, very small offices, to the KPMG building. It was kind of an experience for everyone. Was super exciting because at the time we felt that we will have the means at KPMG. We hold their customer list. We'll be able to develop the business, etc. So it felt very good, and for the team it was super exciting because suddenly you are part of something much bigger, and the potential of to grow is much higher. So that was super excited. That was super interesting.
That's amazing. So as soon as you I call it the golden handcuff time, right? The golden handcuff time. As soon as you jump that, how did Dollarama came into your radar? That's the PMG.
Biggest customer at the firm we sold. So that I was there almost every day, right? We had 4 or 5 people that was on the account, and I was doing a lot of project with them. So I was already working as a consultant at Dollarama for the last 4 or 5 years, right? So we were discussing at the time to start and to be serious with this international thing, and I felt it was the next good move. And honestly, at the time, it was not the Dollarama we know, right? It was a much more company. It was a time where people were kind of shy and ashamed of shopping at Dollarama. So I always say that it was the time where people were just hiding their Dollarama bag into a Zeller bag, right? It was another time, and but that was kind of a very particular move because you leave that big giant corporation where there's a status. You are at KPMG. It's a big 4 company, and then you move to Dollarama that not a lot of people know. It felt like but it was I felt the potential of this business were super interesting. I felt that I had the opportunity to grow even more than I had in KPMG. So that was a very tough decision, but I decided to move forward, and ended up being a good move.
That's fantastic. So see, you change patterns, you break patterns for sure, Nick. Because another thing that is fantastic is that you became a leader in technology without being in technology, in training, or in experience.
Yeah, but there's a good thing about it is when you don't come from the technology world, you come from the business world. You always make sure that technology is at the service of the business, right? So I think that was one of the big things here, where all the project or everything was about business, not about technology, and you end up with a function here that is really a support function. Technology here, IT, they don't have their own agenda. They are really a service to the business. So I feel that there's in a lot of company, people build their own kingdom and they have their own stuff, and you ended up very disconnected from the business. But when IT is managed by a business person, it's a total different story.
And Nick, this is the main difference between good leaders in technology and very poor leaders in technology. When people don't know that technology only exists to support the business, it's a very, very bad combination. So I had to learn that very quickly. When I started going higher and higher on my IT career in multinational corporations, the reason why I moved very, very fast, very high is because I realized that. When I went to college, I have 2 computer science degrees, and my grandfather always told me, he was a chartered accountant, and he told me, regardless of how much you like computers, always make sure you have as much business and accounting courses under your belt. So I ended up almost getting, if there was such a thing, I was getting a minor in accounting and business when I graduated from computer science. I think I took 7-8 courses at university, at college for that. Following the advice of my grandfather, and what he told me is, the business is the unit that creates the money. the revenue. Computers and everything else just support it, right? So if you don't know how to make money or how business operates, you could be a genius in computer science, but you will always be a mediocre employee, right? And he was right.
I agree.
Right? And so you are a clear example of that, right? And also, I think what I, this podcast is about inspiring other people to be to where you are, right? How can they build up the seat of Nick in their own life, in their own experience? And so for the technologies that are listening to us, it's very important to focus on business. Yes, technology is very important, but technology you can actually, especially if you love technology, you learn very quickly. But if you don't fall in love with business, it's going to be very rare that you become a leader in technology. Or if you become a leader in technology for your influence, you're not going to be a very good one, right?
I agree. And I think one of the stuff is around being more interested into the process than into the tool, right? So very often people are thinking about solving an issue with a tool. So I'll buy this software, I'll implement this stuff, where the issue is just on the process, right? You need to fix the process first, and then you can put whatever tool you want. But if you put a tool on a shaky process, you are not doing anything, and you won't fix your issue. So I think a good thing about coming from the business is you're focused on the process much more than on technology, right?
That golden nugget is brilliant. You never use a hammer on a screw, and then you never use a screwdriver on a nail. Right tools for the right process, right? And I've actually fell into that, Nick. I was guilty of that. I fell in love with Microsoft technologies back in 2000, and I became a .NET, passionate developer and architect, and nobody would take me away from that until I finally learned that you have to choose that applies better to the process that you're trying to solve, because the business, that's what it is. It's a business process, right?
Yeah, and it's not super easy, because at the end of the day, you work with a department of technologists, right? So what they are interested in is this new tool, this shining toy, and this and that. So everything you're presented is always about the tool, right? And you need to be super focused on always bringing back to the process. Are we fixing something? Are we fixing the right thing? Are we fixing the process? And I think that's part of the job. Yeah.
Nick, in your career, what has been the hardest problem you had to face, and how did you overcome it?
I think we had multiple issues across the year, but I think it's about growth, right? It's about how you scale the business, and how you avoid stop being lean, right? Because when you start a business when we started here, we had 400-500 stores, and now you grow into 1,600 store in Canada, 700 store there, etc. I think the biggest challenge is how you stay lean, and how you make sure that you keep the same culture even if you grow, right? Because when you grow, everyone, their money is getting in, the budget are getting bigger, and everyone is swamped over project and multiple project, and everyone is super busy, and everyone want to hire a lot of people, right? So you could easily create an army of people and justify head count. And I think the biggest challenge I faced was about being super disciplined on there's so many projects, there's so many stuff to be done, is let's focus and let's one at a time. And I understand this as a $2, $3, $4, $5 million saving, but you need to be disciplined enough to say, not for now. Let's focus on this. Let's finish it, and let's tackle the next big one, and next big one, etc. And by being patient and by being disciplined, you avoid creating army of people and then losing control. And so I think it's staying lean in an environment where you want to grow and you want to do things quickly, right?
And that then again, that shows your business mentality, right? And how do you apply it to IT? I mean, every business has a margin, but those margins get very, very little, very fast when your headcount is overwhelming. It has happened to me in my own small business, right? I mean, like I go into patterns where I have to do headcount cuts because we got too fat, and and it's a very small company compared to something like Dollarama and Dollar City. But it's the same principle. And I think the bigger the company, the more you have to be aware that the faster you could go out of business. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And even on the headcount, when you hire people, I think the challenge is always to make sure you hire the right people, right? Because you live in a world where IT resources, they are hard to find, right? So you have hiring managers that are in need of hiring people, and they actually are swamped over work and over project, and when that happens, sometimes they lose sight of whether it's a good hire or not, right? Because they are pressure and they really want someone in the seats, so they tend to compromise. So that's why I think part of the job is basically to say no to certain hire that you feel that I understand that we desperately need someone, but the long-term cost of hiring the wrong people is much higher than not having anyone in place, right? So I think that's part of the challenge of the IT leaders, is to make sure that even if the market is tough, you don't compromise in hiring.
One bad apple always rottens the rest of the apples in the basket, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's for sure, because that's completely true. Nick, what's in the future for you?
I think we just started this new journey in Australia, so I think trying to conquer another market is super exciting for me. We get into this Australian market. We have a company that has currently 400 stores that we want to grow, and we've been able to conquer Latin America, conquer Canada. Then I think it's a new chapter of our journey. So I think it's the next step for the upcoming year. To see how it goes.
I think with Mexico and Australia, you have your hands full for at least 5 years.
Oh yeah, at least 5 years. We have a lot of room to grow, and I think it's going to be very challenging.
Mexico is over 100 million people, right? And it's a great market. I think you guys going to do great, especially because I've seen your implementation. So I don't know if you know this company. I think it was sold to an American firm, but it's called the M&M Meat Shops.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the lead of software there when they were about 500 stores back in 2004. And I saw how beautifully managed was that organization. So I do have a lot of experience in retail. So every time I go to a store, I check it out and see what are their best practices, their patterns, their standards. And I could tell that a Dollar City in Guatemala is exactly the same as a Dollar City in Kitchener, Waterloo, or in Toronto. It's exactly the same, with the same level of standard, right? Same as going to a Starbucks. You go to a Starbucks anywhere in the world, and it's exactly the same standard. Just customize to the culture, which is even better, right? And that's the secret of success. If you find the formula that works, put the best practices in place, put the standards in place, and grow it, and it's gonna work. So you got a lot of work ahead of you.
We have a lot of work, and I think this idea of keep it simple, keep it standard has been very core to the philosophy and to the success of the organization so far.
That's beautiful. Nick, one last question for you. I know you're a big executive. If you had access to a billboard in front of the busiest highway on earth, what would you write on it?
What I would write on it? I would probably write, focus on what you control, because that's been something that I've been trying to do my whole life, and trying to be better every day, not worrying on something you cannot control or outside your cycle of influence. Never assume, and don't waste energy on looking back on something you cannot change, right? So get the learning and move on. So yeah, that's probably what I would write.
And Nick, that is so right. People get stressed. People even get heart attacks trying to control stuff that is not in their control. So why do you worry if you cannot do anything about it anyway?
Exactly. Right? And specifically as an IT leader, you live in a world where there are cybersecurity threat. There is this implementation, and there's this, and so I think you can be very stressed very often. So I think, yeah, focusing on what you control is one of the way of getting through it.
And you know what, Nick? At the end of the day, if you really make an inventory of what you can actually control, even if you're a top CIO or top CTO, it's very little.
Agreed.
You set the standard, you bring the leadership to the team, you bring the values of the company, and that's pretty much it. If your people don't operate the way you wish to operate, you have no control over that. Yes, you can have programs, incentives, and training, and yes, you have control over that. But at the end of the day, once they start implementing, they are on their own, right?
Exactly.
Or getting hacked, for example, right? What control you have over that? Well, you have control over hiring the right staff and the right technologies to protect yourself as much to the best of your ability with the budget that you have. But over and above that, give it up to God, man. And relax.
Agreed.
Nick, thank you so much for your time. If people like to ask you questions or follow up with you, and you're on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me there. No problem.
Thank you so much for your time. You have been a blessing to this channel, and have a beautiful rest of the week.
Thanks a lot, David. Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Leaders in Tech podcast. Check in next week to keep learning how to use technology and leadership to change the game. See you next time.